Okay, here is chapter 6. It is a fairly short chapter, but it's paired with chapter 7, which is a really long chapter. Okay, so kind of plan your time this week to get both chapters done. Your mastery check, for chapter 6 is tomorrow. And your mastery check for 7 will be on Thursday. So you have quite a bit of reading to get done, but a ton of stuff is happening. So in chapter 6, it starts on page 103. Let me just show you a few of the things that you're going to kind of out here. So you're going to find out the story of James Gatz, that is, and also the real story of Dan Cody. We have heard of Dan Cody before. Early in our chapter, his photo was on a wall in Gatsby's house, and all we kind of knew was he was a mentor to Gatsby. So you're going to find out the real story of Dan Cody now. There's also a very short scene, but it reveals a lot. Tom and a gentleman and another woman are riding horses, and they come over to Gatsby's house. They're just kind of snooping a little bit, and I want you to pay attention to how Tom treats Gatsby and vice versa. Like, there's a conversation, and there's a kind of a plan for Gatsby to go with them, but they don't really want Gatsby to go with them. But the woman does because she's drunk and has had a couple drinks over there. And they end up like standing up Gatsby and like leaving him there. So again, it's this idea of how people are treated and how careless they are. That is a word that really encompasses the haves, the people with money in this book, really a lot. And you keep seeing it over and over again. I hope you're getting that sense. Then in his curiosity of Gatsby, Tom brings his wife Daisy to a party at Gatsby's. And Tom is not, at this point, yet aware of what is going on with Gatsby and Daisy. But you also see an interesting response of Daisy to this party and the people at the party. So pay attention to that too. And you also will kind of get a sense of, some people have said this before, I think maybe because you've seen the film or you've kind of got this sense, but this is the first chapter that Tom refers to Gatsby as a bootlegger. Like kind of just questioning what kind of guy is this guy with this new money. Because they're very snobbish because Mr. Buchanan, has old money. It's been handed down from generation to generation, and they're very arrogant about having that kind of money, which is better than having even an equal amount, but getting it on your own and having what they call new money. During this chapter also, you will hear Nick kind of warn Gatsby, and this came up in chapter 5, that you can't repeat the past. Gatsby just wants to pick up Daisy where they left off 5 years ago and move forward. And Nick is warning him, you can't. And Gatsby says, of course you can. So think about that. Like, who's more realistic and who's not? And, some foreshadowing. How do you think that's going to go? And then on page 116, pay attention to what Gatsby expects of Daisy. What does he think should happen? And see if that's something that is also realistic or not. In your packet, your must-do assignment starts on page 24. And it's just giving you some text. Again, I'd like you to kind of get into the text and take pieces of it and look at it. There's a question about Dan Cody. What role does Cody play in Gatsby's dream, or his illusion of what he thinks his life should be? And then one about why does Gatsby change his name? Because that goes back to James Gatz, who was that. And then getting into a little bit of some of the books I've talked about Daisy. And then this idea, and there's kind of a religious reference here, where Gatsby kind of alludes to himself as, and there's some textual references to it, climbing the ladder, the secret place above the trees, kind of this godlike metaphor for Gatsby at this point in the book. So just kind of be ready for that. That's what that references to on page 25. And then if you do not know what incarnation is, I really encourage you to look it up, because that's kind of a pivotal reference in this text, in this chapter, that will come up again and again, and is important to understanding how that was kind of the turning point for him and Daisy at that point. So that is your last one, question on page 26. Then you have your should do questions, which I always encourage you to read. Just be ready though in this section. I really wanted you to make sure you got those ideas in the must do. So you'll see a little bit of repetition of that in the questions. So they're much easier to answer than, obviously, because you've hopefully done those textual quotes and citations above that. You've seen that, so you know where they're coming from. So these questions should not be overwhelming to you. And then that's it. Chapter 7 is long and a lot goes on there. It's a huge dramatic scene. So with that, good luck with chapter 6 and be ready for the mastery check.